Buongiorno a tutti. Very nice to be here. Good morning, guten Morgen. My name is Michaela, which is Schwarz in Italian, and I'm absolutely honored to be here. I'm a former president of IAP, but also a long board member for 12 years, and I'm also the vice chair of the Austrian Aviation Psychology Association. We are neighboring countries, so a founding member there as well. And I have to tell you that aviation psychology and human factors is my passion. It's in my heart. IAP is my family, together with my other family at home. I have a 2.5-year-old and my husband Alexander, who is looking after her now. Thank you to the team, Alessandra, ITAPA, the whole team, and also Marina and Juliana back there for translating us simultaneously. Thank you very much. I have the honor now to tell you the results, basically, of a working group that started off just before Corona in 2020, and it is related to a European competency framework for aviation psychologists and human factors experts. So I'd like to ask a quick question in these rooms. How many psychologists are in the room? If you are a psychologist, please raise your hands. Fantastic. Maybe we can capture a picture. Thank you. How many people work in human factors? Please raise your hand again, a little less. So that reflects the results of the AAP survey. How many pilots do we have in the room? Thank you very much. Cabin crew? Yeah, air traffic controllers? Yeah, there's a few. Engineers, any kind of engineers, aircraft technician, maintenance? Maybe behind the column. See? They are an underestimated crowd. So we need to do more for our maintenance. They are a direct, well, indirect link to aviation safety. But today is about the competency-based framework. Now, human factors, figuring out the right button. Yeah. Down, correct. I'd like to remind us of the Germanwings case because it changed the game. Who is familiar with Germanwings? Raise your hands. Not everyone. So, a very, very brief summary. 24th of March in 2015, Germanwings, a German-registered aircraft, had a deliberate flight into terrain in the French Alps. The pilot flying was the co-pilot, Andreas Lubitz, at the time, and he chose, in a morning flight, onto the way to from Barcelona back, he chose to fly the aircraft into the mountains and take everybody on board with him. And I'd like to remind us of that accident because it was a game changer. And it was a shock for the whole of Europe, certainly, that something like that can happen in Europe. And this is not Africa or any of the, countries less developed. This was the heart of Europe. Yeah, we have a very high doctor-patient confidentiality. It worked extremely fine. That particular pilot had psychological issues. He was suffering from severe depression for a while. He was also highly selected by a very standardized selection institute in Europe. So it was really a shock to everyone. How could this have happened? If you then look into history, you will find that it was not the first case. But I'd like to highlight the safety management part of that side. So the root cause of this accident was, of course, the co-pilot locking himself in the cockpit while the captain was outside in the rear cabin and flying that aircraft into terrain on purpose, putting the altitude level to 0, right? That was the root cause. But then the contributing factors, when you look into the analysis, and please do refer to the Germanwings accident investigation report for all the details, will highlight that the safety management system on a European level failed. The pilot had, of course, seen doctors. Sick leave certificates never arrived at the company. He was not monitored. So there was several issues. And I think this is what is the strength in aviation, that our safety management system works, that EASA took on the role, having taking on board the learnings from that terrible accident, and issuing new regulations that most of you will be familiar, but I brought them here for you. And let's be reminded that aviation psychology has been there since 1956, the foundation of IAP, a long, long time, but the driver for raising awareness on mental health issues was Andreas Lubitz. So in all the tragic case, let's take the lessons learned with us, and we thank EASA for coming up with what we call the German Wings regulation package. And as many of you will know, it includes the mandatory provision of pilot support programs, also random alcohol and drugs testing, because the co-pilot tested positives on antidepressants and also sleeping aids, and of course the psychological assessment, which will be the focus here, just to give you a bit of background. So if you're looking into the EASA regulation, you will find that now, obviously, the psychological assessment must be overseen by a psychologist who has knowledge in aviation and experience, and most importantly, knowledge about the flight crew operating environment. So that is the biggest requirement that we have in IAP since '96, that you know, as psychologists, to have that technical language. You do speak aviation and language and understand aviation language. And then further down, obviously, the focus for mental health issues, if you do work with, look into the mental health issues, you have to have a clinical rating, as we say, so you have to be a clinical psychologist with knowledge in selection and expertise and experience in psychology. And we do thank André Droog, the former president, who was really, really a driver here to get the right words into the regulation, and of course Gunnar and all the EASA work groups who really helped us to be more present now in the world as aviation psychologists. But also, let's not forget that it's not just aviation psychology. Not everybody has a psychological issue. Huh? Maybe by statistics, yes, once in your life, but you know, there's also those other fields. And aren't you, all the psychologists, fed up with colleagues that you meet and they ask you, so what are you doing? I'm a psychologist. Are you analyzing me right now? Do you have a bed in your office where you can do psychotherapy one-on-one, you know? And I was like, no, I don't have that. And it's not all of it is Sigmund Freud, as you have here. So that's really, the role is changing. And also then, let's go back to the Vitruvian man. This is, actually we are at the heart here in Italy. And human factors and ergonomy. Yeah? So really the roles are changing. And then Sigmund Freud finally goes into the cockpit as well. This is actually a simulator. I'm in the captain's seat, of course. And then you also have the human factor specialist. This was during Corona. We did a CRM training. That's the real aircraft. So what is important to EAP, and it's important in the Austrian world, and it's important here, is that you understand aviation language. You are on the same level with the operational people you work with. You're on, you know, you're not Sigmund Freud up there or something. You're on an equivalent level. That's important. So please keep in mind, why are we doing this? Why do we change accreditation now? Because the roles have changed, okay? Then please have a brief look. Can you find yourself on this slide, what you are doing? And this is only, it's not an extensive list. It's just examples of what are the differences and where are the synergies, okay? So on the left-hand side, obviously, it's more related to clinical questions, but not only, okay? So you have the pilot support programs in there, of course, you have the counseling, coaching, mentoring, all these things, but also things like safety and just culture, of course, we need aviation psychologists there. Change management in organizations is a big role for aviation psychologists. And then on the other side, you have anything that goes with human factors, design, human-machine interface, usability engineering, UX, the new cooler. So, and of course, CRM, TRM, fatigue risk management systems, you know all the buzzwords. And when we started off with that work group, I asked the questions to my members, so can you put yourself in one of the two? And I couldn't, because I do both. So we said, okay, this is going to be difficult. Where to draw the line? Where are the synergies? And where are tasks that are really only for one or the other? And then a very, very important one for me personally is take care of the young people, and I mean now young with age. Make sure that we have students come after us, people who are presenting posters out there. Thanks for doing that. We need young people because otherwise we're like dinosaurs, and we will slowly but surely die out. So we need more students, so please tell them to find IAP. And we want to bridge the gap between academia and the industry. And just to be in Italy here, I found an Italian bridge. So that's very important. What we do in research needs to be applicable to the industry. And then also we have a picture like Alessandra and her team where it all began. Yeah, so you see Nicoletta and Alessandra joined us here online. That was in February 2020, just before Corona hit. A meeting, these are my work group members. This is where we kicked it off in Vienna. And we took being psychologists, we took a methodological approach, and we looked at a number, exactly 90 international regulations, and looked up what do they say in terms of aviation psychology and human factors. Then we looked at 35 universities and training organizations to look into degree programs for one and the other. 10 registration standards like chartership, for example, like the BPS, the British Psychological Society, those qualified entities that the colleague was referring to. Then 47 stakeholders, we consulted with them. And then we received in a short survey 19 job descriptions to see, do you have competencies in there? Do you have tasks in there for aviation psychology and human factors? And based on that, all of that went into a draft framework. And then, of course, the final framework was endorsed by IAP, thankfully. And we also came up with a way to assess those competencies. And of course, we are here to lobby and promote wherever we can. And we do hope that in the long run, and we need IAP and Gunnar's experience here, that we can have that framework officially recognized by EASA for both aviation psychology, we have that now with German wings, but also for the human factors people who are not formally recognized by EASA. And I mean, aircraft design, I don't have to tell you, is equally important. Now, obviously, the psychologists in the room will be familiar. The model we use for the competency framework is the KSA model, knowledge, skills, and not ability. We chose attitudes on purpose. So basically, we are now looking in our members for competencies, first of all, the understanding, the skill, the technical knowledge, the practical approach, then the how-to, the skills, and then finally, do they have the right attitude to work with operational personnel? And foundational work was done by ITAPA. I really want to thank Alessandra and her team here, so grazie mille. And I think this is also meant for an applause for ITAPA. ITAPA paved the way for the European scheme. You're a bit more in detail here. There is some core competencies, some enablers in the ITAPA model and different levels. On the European level, we keep it a bit simpler. We don't have those different competency levels, but that was the foundational work. And that's the final product now. And it is really a big one, so I'm trying to get it down into digestible chunks. We start with the aviation psychology world in purple. We have, of course, the technical knowledge about humans, anything about psychology. Then we have the methods that you know as psychologists. So that's basically psychometric testing, and you will get some detail in a minute. And then on the other side, the green bits is human factors, right? Again, in human factors, you have a lot of knowledge about humans. It's the whole physiological part, ergonomy, etc. Also psychology, of course. And again, you have specific methods only for people who work in human factors. And then you have this huge overlap in the middle that you can see here. And you have, what do they have in common? Of course, the aviation domain knowledge, right? Then there are methods that both can apply. Yeah, a human factors specialist is not allowed to apply a psychological test, but there are many methods that both can use. And then we have areas of practice. We defined 8. And then common supporting skills. So that is the foundational work, and you can have it. It will be published. I show you in a minute. You can take as many pictures, please promote on LinkedIn, help us. And in total, if you are very good at maths, you will put 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 18, 8, 9, comes up with 44 competencies. So if you are very ambitious, aviation psychologist or human factor specialist, you can, in a lifetime, earn all 44. But that's not realistic. So we are now starting with 3 to 4, up to 6 competencies that you have. And why are we doing this? Because we want to give the students and the people, the young generation, a perspective on how to, have a career in aviation psychology and human factors. Now, the beauty and the beast, I thought that's nice to remind us as well. Of course, we wanted to put it all on one slide, and out came this. It's a so-called killer presentation. But if you really want only one slide, that's your slide, and we have it as a PDF to be nicely printed as well. And you can see really the detail here. The knowledge about the humans is all about psychology, the sensory motor functions, attention, reasoning. On the other side, you have the physiology, anthropometrics, biometrics, engineering part. And then you have the psychometrical tools, basically on the left-hand side, and specific human factors assessment tools on the right-hand side. And then you have the middle part here. And what we have in common, I think, is those 3: to know the specific operator environment. This is the EASA requirement as well. Speak aviation language, at least the ICAO alphabet, and the technical terms, and knowledge about regulation. So that's how it looks. And this is just one example. So you will have 44 of these, okay? And this is one that is applicable for both, doing behavior observations and interviews. We all do that. We are trained to do that. And you can see here a short description, what we mean, then the knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes, okay? So you can find for all 44, this is defined. And this is the Bible, so that's the handbook on the competencies, the first edition. We're very, very thankful for all the people that have already reviewed that work. Again, if you don't have much time, you just need the Beauty and the Beast slide, and then that will be it. And the second edition is in progress, will hopefully be ready soon. That's the overview, and then we have only the list of competencies as well, the 44. And then also some guidance for employers and some guidance for newcomers on how to progress in the career. And only for IAP members, but of course this can be adapted to other associations. We have a database to put the evidence to your competencies, and I'd like to show you, since we have 33, how that looks. So the 1996 Baudia scheme was the following. There were 3 categories: associate, student, and full membership. Gunnar already explained to you. And then the minimum was a scientific degree in psychology. And for the human factors people, it was simply relevant education. And then it has always been the case that we ask for at least 3,000 hours of practical expertise applied. So that was always roughly 3 years, full time. If not, it can be longer. And then you needed at least a diploma, then, of course, an updated CV and certificates. And then, in the meanwhile, until the EAP code was ready, we had the EFPA code, so that's the European Federal Psychology Association's code. And then, with the new scheme, we basically say we have 2 categories, the aviation psychologist and the human factors specialist in aviation. Both are, you either are endorsed or you are not endorsed. So we don't do competency levels yet, because that is a more complex task. Any membership, and you need to be at least 1 year member with EAP, so you can familiarize yourself with the domain, with the colleagues, you can meet the EAP board, you can attend courses and conferences. So this is really the familiarization period. And then Gunnar mentioned it, and I think that's a real big chance for Europe and beyond. It's now going to be the master degree or higher. Of course, you can have a PhD for any psychology, of course, but then any other relevant discipline. That really raises the bar. And yeah, you have 44 competencies that you can earn. Of course, you can lose competencies if you don't practice. You can go down the ladder as well. And it's really in the hands of the members to manage their own competencies, just like we ask for pilots to do that, or air traffic controllers in the continuous assessment. And then, of course, we have the professional code of conduct now. And we used 2 best practice examples here. One is the EFPA Eurosci certificate, and the other one is the European Ergonomist title. And we looked into how they assess the competencies, and both are having something that is called continuous professional development. So we took that approach on board and are offering the same for our members. And it's a 3-step process now, and you basically complete a survey once, where you put all the data. That takes about 1 hour, okay? So that's a bit longer, so that you can really think about what do you know? What are your skills? What is your knowledge? Knowledge first and the skill. What is your attitude at work, and what competencies do you really have? And it's quite difficult to put that down to the 3 to 5, because you cannot be an expert in everything. And then this is just how it looks. This is EAP only, okay? So you can only have access to this if you're an EAP member. And then obviously the idea is a continuous assessment. So whenever you earn a new competency, you complete a training course, you do a traineeship, you work with professionals, you enter that into the database, and you grow. And in the end, if you want, you can be with all the 44 competencies. All of that is published, I'm very happy, in the next issue. This is the reference. You all have a flyer to the EAP journal, and the ITAPA members also have a hard copy of the journal, Aviation Psychology and Applied Human Factors. It's an official publication, and again here I'd like to thank everyone on board, Sonia from Air France, Frederic from the Belgian Air Force, Tina from Qatar Airways, Katarina in Serbia, Hermann from the German Association, Alessandra of course, and Nicoletta, myself, and then also Anna from the UK. We worked basically on putting this together for you, so that's available in the journal. And of course, we always want to have scrutiny from external people, and I'd like to thank at this stage to all the association who helped us in reviewing the work. So it was not just the 7 people or 8 people, it was the whole of EAP board, all members of EAP, our work group, Eurocontrol, EFPA, the French connection, which is Groupe Réflexion Facteurs Humains, the NATO Human Factors Work Group, and the Human Factors Ergonomic Society. So all of them have looked into the handbook, the competencies, and said, yes, that is what we want to apply as the next standard. And of course, any other. So please feel free, Alessandra, to distribute to ITAPA, to have a look, and so on. We have had the request already to translate into the big languages, like, of course, Italian, Spanish, French, German, etc. And we are thinking of ways on how to achieve that. At the moment, it's English only. Yeah, and then, of course, we cannot stop. I actually don't know where I'm with the timing, so hopefully it's okay. It's the Vision 2050, and everybody is probably sick of Elon Musk and his visions, but it's gonna be aerospace eventually, at some point. That's what I believe. So the aviation psychology and human factors will be taken up into space, whether it's Mars or somewhere closer. But this, you know, it's going to be for the next generations, that will be it. Huh? So what is the vision? For me, at least, and I already calculated when Mars happens, I'm 66 years old, so good chance that I can be on a flight, maybe, when Elon Musk succeeds. But what do I mean for us? Huh? So really, I have the ambition that in 10 years' time, every organization in aviation has either an aviation psychologist or a human factors person employed in the company. That is the vision. Not contractor, not whatever advisor from afar and from remote, employed in the company. A competent aviation psychologist or human factors specialist, depending on the tasks, of course, and at least one per company. So if you now do a forecast of all the aviation organizations that you have in Italy, and that's probably easier than worldwide, and then you multiply that, you will know how many aviation psychologists and human factors people you will need. And let's work together to train all those people up and give them opportunities to practice. That's the issue. You can all be in a training course. For example, come to Graz, which is your neighboring country, Austria, and my hometown of Graz. 3rd to the 7th of July. In Graz, we have a summer school for students, but also professionals. These are the keynote speakers. You will probably recognize here former EAP board member Joanna Kogelbauer as keynote speaker, Peter Joanna from the Netherlands, and then also a current EAP board member and the lead of the ICAO mental health work group, Johan, is there, and then Captain John DeLeuve. Oh, sorry, too soon. He's the safety manager at American Airlines. And then Peter Röska, a very good friend of mine who is into usability engineering and design of cars. And you will notice that we have a theme which is not mental health. It's not clearly clinical. It is on purpose a human factors theme, which is related to interdisciplinary learning and mobility, because we believe the future is a close link between aviation and rail, air meets rail, urban mobility, just like drones, air taxis, and of course, bus transport, and where we have the sea, also, of course, sea transport. So it will be really, we will have panel discussions on how we can achieve the multimodal transport systems. Have a look at the website. You have the QR code here. You can just put your phone and you will get to the website. And let's make the Vision 2050 really feasible, and let's support each other to promote aviation psychology and human factors, not only in Italy and Austria, but worldwide. Thank you very much for your attention.